We just would like to start for thanking everyone for giving us this nice opportunity to present our little bit niche research idea. So our title for today, or our research paper for today, is Shahid, AI and Cultural Reprogramming, Exploring Saudi Influence Through the Lens of Transhumanism Theory. So as we have explored a little bit yesterday at the end of the day, Taylor and I's focus is basically not purely on transhumanist theory, but we're more focused on how the media in the Middle East pitches that or produces that idea of what is transhumanist theory and how is that linked to politics and law in terms of dictatorship. So, for just before we start, Taylor and I have changed the abstract a little bit. So what we might present today will look a little bit different to the abstract. This is just purely because Saudi Arabia in December 2024 have produced something so interesting that we said we need to update all our research and we need to update our argument. So our aims for this talk is to explore the gap in the scholarship use of basic transhumanistic understanding that is being applied in Saudi-owned media platforms. So we are going to have 3 sections in our talk. So the first section, which will be presented by myself, I am going to give some background information on the contemporary Saudi film, TV and transhumanist theory. So how does Saudi-owned media represent transhumanist theory to their audience? The second part, it will be presented by Taylor, where he is going to link the background information that I'll speak about to political transhumanism. And then the third part we jointly are going to present is linking political transhumanism and cultural transhumanism. So, let me just start a little bit by giving you some background into Saudi media. So as you can see, we have a timeline here. So in 1997, NBC, which is the Saudi main broadcasters, most shown or most viewed by Arab-speaking audiences, have been established. And in 1997, all their media producers was reflecting just the traditional Saudi lives. It never challenged anything about, so it never talked about women's rights, children's rights, transhumanist theory. It was just very basic. And then we move forward, we had the 2008, where the Turkish soft media started appearing in NBC. 2011, we had the Arab Spring, and then the turning point was 2017 when MBS Mohammed bin Salman came into power with his 2030 vision. So from 2017 or around 2018, Saudi media series or movies started a little bit of criticizing or pitching that idea. Let's challenge Saudi traditions. So they started showing some movies or series that challenges women's rights, children's rights, Islamic beliefs. So there was just the start of it. And then suddenly in December 2024, Saudi, 100% Saudi production with 100% Saudi actress, presented that idea of a movie that is called Yesterday After Tomorrow. And Yesterday After Tomorrow...
I'm just having a look for it first. So
yeah,
it seems to appear on the slides.
No, just give me...
We'll go back to it. You keep talking.
So,
yeah, I'll get it. You keep talking.
So the Yesterday After Tomorrow, December 2024, was the first ever Saudi movie or Saudi produced media that spoke about transhumanist theory. And this is why we've changed our abstract, because that was only in December 2024. So, what happened in the movie? So we've got a mother, a widowed mother, and 2 of her adult sons. They move to a new house. In that new house, they discover a machine that time travels. I know time traveling is not really there's not big focus from my limited, I think, knowledge about transhumanism. They don't focus really much on time traveling. But what was interesting to us is that there was a lot of Islamic dialogue happening when they were talking about time traveling in the movie. So the woman has two sons, two adult sons. One of them, or both of them, were speaking about the idea of fate, or as we call it in Arabic or in Islamic language, qadar. So I've put two verses from the Quran that basically translates to us that you cannot, in Islam, we believe that you cannot change your fate, you cannot change your qadar. However, there was a very interesting dialogue between both actors, both sons. One of them wanted to go back in history and go back via the time traveling machine and save their father. So change their destiny, change their qadar. While the other son was talking about, no, yes, we can time travel, but we cannot change our fate, or we cannot change our qadar. So there was around half an hour to 45 minutes, that kind of transhumanist versus or slash Islamic kind of dialogue about transhumanism. Can we change our fate by technology? So it was kind of very interesting. It was very basic. It did not touch upon the theory. It did not touch upon anything. But me and Taylor thought it definitely can have a link to transhumanist theory and Islam, which is, again, the idea of qadar. So for those who, I don't think we're going to have enough time to show the trailer of the movie, but the movie is still on cinemas, so I don't think it's anywhere. But Shahid, which we'll explore in our third part, has bought the copyrights of the movie, and hopefully it should be accessible to the public around March or April 2025. So I will leave it now to Taylor to explain to us how does that media production of Saudi Arabia can link to political transhumanism.
Thank you very much, Fawz. Thank you. Right, so we've had a sort of introduction now to a case study of how Saudi Arabia is grappling with transhumanist theory. Now I want to sort of explore a reason why. And it very much links to what we've mentioned a couple of times about this Vision 2030. For those who don't know, Vision 2030 is an initiative that was launched by MBS in 2017. That was meant to rapidly modernise the kingdom, make it compatible with the post-oil era, and bring a lot of modernisation and development into the kingdom, either through physical development or by cultural development. Now, what's key to the 2030 vision is what the Saudi government calls pillars. Very similar to the sort of 5 pillars of Islam. We've got the pillars of the 2030 vision, and there's 3 pillars there, which I won't talk about in detail, but I want you to bear them in mind when I continue talking about how this links to transhumanism, because a lot of what the pillars and what the initiative for the 2030 vision has is towards cultural opportunities, cultural enhancement or cultural exchange, using both what the Saudis want as being their national heritage and pride, but also Islamic heritage and pride as well. And we're going to see how that fits in with the kind of transhumanism theory. Now, what we grappled with initially was what type of transhumanism might the Saudi government be utilising here, and we've sort of looked at both political and religious transhumanism in this regard. And what was interesting is that you can clearly see by the sort of general definitions of both of those transhumanisms is the idea that Saudi Arabia wants to modernise, yes, but doesn't want to infringe on any of the debates about how Islam contends or debates with transhumanist theory, as we kind of touched on yesterday with the Al Jazeera video. So they went ahead with looking into how, with the definition of political transhumanism, a group of political ideologies that generally express the belief in improving individuals through science and technology, as we know the definition to be. And the idea was the limitation of how far they take transhumanist logic within their media production is not from a religious perspective, but instead from the political. And that's where the 2030 vision comes into it. Now, why would they do this? We've sort of identified two reasons. One is that the movies that challenge our human capabilities, sort of demonstrated in films and TV serials produced by Saudi Arabia, was never a thing before Mohammed bin Salman. Yes, there were Saudi films, but never ones that stretched and explored limits of how to maybe looking into sort of transhumanist logic. And secondly, the idea was with these productions since Mohammed bin Salman was to allow the thought of transhumanism with a limit. Yes, suggesting, for instance, in the film Yesterday After Tomorrow that Fawz mentioned, that one day someone may have access to a time machine, but there would be Islamic restrictions to that, revolving around Islamic doctrine and revolving also around the faith, the Al-Qadr. They are therefore placing limits to align with the 2030 vision, specifically the pillar on the vibrant society, which promotes, yes, Saudi cultural values, but alongside Islamic principles, probably not to upset the deeply Islamic community, not just in Saudi, but in the wider Middle East. So we went into looking into political transhumanism, and this is where we came in. This is where we came to a sort of an unexplored region, perhaps. It's been mentioned a couple of times by a couple of you in yesterday's and the day before's talks on what political transhumanism can be utilised in. So people have looked at the libertarian aspect of political transhumanism, how it can be used in a sort of pluralistic society. However, it was never really explored how authoritarian governments can utilise political transhumanism. And we thought maybe we need to sort of delve into this a little bit. And we've got a sort of some scholarly work which talks about how there's a potential for liberation or oppression when it comes to political transhumanism. And I'm just going to delve into this research a little bit. It's in our bibliography at the end. Transhumanism is often celebrated for its potential to liberate humanity from biological limitations. However, in a context where power is centralised and dissent is suppressed, the same technologies can be repurposed to enhance power within limits that the state agrees with. This creates a dual dilemma. Technologies meant to empower individuals might instead be used to reinforce authoritarian control. Now, this is exactly what we think the Saudis want. They want to be able to control this power, this transhumanist thought, for their own purpose, not to change any sort of political well, yes, to change the politics, but crucially not to change how their regime is structured. Moving into it even further, when we're looking at sort of the debates in how Saudi is looking at political transhumanism, we come to this kind of ethos towards how the Saudis are modernising. And there's very much not a battle going on, but certainly a balancing act between modernity and keeping with traditional principles, and I've sort of put a little bit of the contest there on the slide. If what the Saudis are doing is representative of political transhumanism, what impact is this having on the current reform battles and efforts that the government is having on the modern era? We argue that Saudi is pursuing political transhumanism to both promote human enhancement and control through technological efforts. This has ensured that Saudi accounts for its delicate balance between it faces between modernising, achieving regional hegemony, which is another aspect of their media arm, whilst maintaining its traditions and association with its Islamic past. It never wants to break with Islamic doctrine. It never wants to challenge that. It merely wants to kind of stretch it to as far as it can go, but never break it. The application of transhumanism is therefore essential in maintaining this balance as Saudi continues to strive towards its 2030 vision. Now, I'll hand back over to Fawz, who's just going to introduce our third and final element, which is how this breaches into cultural transhumanist theory.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. So now that we have explored the media production of Saudi Arabia and how they are, since December 2024, they have now a little bit of focus on transhumanist theory, kind of introducing the idea in their media. So I want to, you might notice that we've got the word Shahid in our title. So Shahid is the Netflix version of the Middle East, okay? So it was produced or introduced to us in 2020, and it's an on-demand platform that it is owned by Saudi Arabian government, and it has more than 40 million active subscribers by when did we
2024.
2024. So how can we link between this media production and political transhumanism is that we thought about Shahid mainly runs by AI and algorithm. So it's very new, it only produced in 2020. So we are very interested in how Saudi Arabia is going to train these algorithms, how they are going to train this AI to pitch or introduce that idea of transhumanism. So I couldn't get access to Shahid in here, but I'm a very big fan of Shahid. I do watch a lot of series on it. In December 2024 again, when you click on the movies side of Shahid, you will see the movies generic. So you've got crime, comedy, romance, etc., etc. They've introduced a new genre which is called science fiction, and it says coming soon. I don't know what's coming soon, but I am thinking it is the movie that me and Taylor have introduced at the start of this talk, and maybe another Saudi produced science fiction or transhumanist movies that produce that kind of reasoning. So Taylor is going to explore to us now how we think this can relate to Shahid, artificial intelligence, algorithms, transhumanism can digitalize the culture of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, a lot of this slide has kind of already been explained by itself, which is great, but I really want to emphasize how another element of what transhumanism can be utilized for is this idea of cultural re-engineering. It's in our title, or cultural reprogramming, using, and I know we're scratching the surface here about what transhumanism is, but basically the technological usages within Shahid promotes this kind of this cultural reprogramming of its citizenship. For the benefit, of course, of getting them in line with the 2030 vision. Now, I've compiled a little bit of a diagram, because I like diagrams, of how this might be illustrated here. I'm not going to talk about it in depth, but basically what I want to get from this mainly is that Shahid directs via AI and algorithms science fiction-esque options that viewers can select, that is deliberately designed to align, yes, with their 2030 vision initiatives, and therefore helping to shape Saudi culture in what the Saudi government wants it to be. Now, this control over content distribution becomes a powerful tool, of course, for cultural reprogramming. Through AI, the platform could subtly guide viewers to accept specific narratives, whether it's the Saudi national pride, religious values, or social expectations, ultimately moulding the cultural landscape in ways that support Saudi goals. With the implementation of Saudified TV shows within this process, as well as films, you can see how the transhumanist method of utilising AI and algorithms within Saudi media platforms can be deliberately designed to culturally reprogram Saudi viewers on an individual, yes, but also a collective level. And you have the ultimate aim, of course, on the right-hand side of this diagram here, where people, through the viewing in Shahid, have become suitably reprogrammed. Now, we'll skip this for now, we might revisit it here, but we were looking at the wider connotations to this, not just within, but outside of Saudi Arabia, of how AI and algorithms are more important. We might return to it later. I think this brings us to a conclusion. And Fawz, I think I'm handing back over to you, aren't I? Yeah.
Cool, yeah, so I'll conclude for our talk. So in this very short talk, we have only scratched a little bit of the surface of transhumanist theory and Saudi Arabia. So our talk had 3 parts. The first part, I introduced to you a little bit of the media production of Saudi Arabia and how they started representing that transhumanist theory in their movie productions. Taylor then went and linked this media production to transhumanist theory and how that can link with dictatorship governments. And for the third part, we explored Shahid, the on-demand platform that is trained by algorithms and AI, and how it can digitalize Saudi culture. Thank you so much.
Thank you.